In the 3rd year of being with Leander, he was going to have a political marriage. I lowered my gaze to my still flat belly and gathered the courage to speak. I love you. Don't choose her, choose me, please. The corners of his lips lifted in a faint smile, but there was no warmth in his eyes. Rowena, it seems I've spoiled you too much. Remember your place, and don't have unrealistic fantasies. You know what I'm capable of. I hastily wiped away my tears and took a night flight to City C. From that moment on, I had nothing more to do with him. 2 years later, my fiancé took me back to City A for our engagement ceremony. As he carefully explained his family's relationships, he mentioned his uncle, an influential man in City A, and leaned close to my ear, teasingly whispering, "Don't be fooled by how cold and ruthless my uncle looks. 2 years ago, he actually stopped a plane for love." Chapter 1. My heart tightened unconsciously. I turned my face toward Albert, intrigued. Did he manage to stop it? Of course not. Albert pinched my cheek between his long fingers, stretching out his voice playfully. He didn't. Those years, my uncle was fighting for power. Grandpa forced him into marriage with the inheritance on the line. Albert paused, then chuckled again. But my uncle isn't the kind of man who'd lose himself in love. It was just a scene. Now, who knows, maybe he's doing great with his fiancée. She said she's not my aunt. My fingertips trembled, and my throat went dry. What else did she say? He answered obediently. She said to tell you about it, and that you'd contact her. I leaned against the wall, a wave of dizziness washing over me. 7 years ago. After giving birth to Anthony, Teresa was determined to leave. She didn't even want to take the baby. I tried to stop her. You haven't even recovered from childbirth. Why don't you take the child to the Law family? He's their flesh and blood. How could they possibly reject you both? Teresa's voice cracked. The child was secretly left by me. How could they possibly think highly of me? How could they allow me through the door? The best outcome would be to go as a mother and leave the child behind. I was silent for a long time. And the baby? She was resolute. If I take him abroad, he'll only drag me down. Leave him at the orphanage gate. And then Teresa left. That winter, she abandoned both me and her child. I was dirt poor back then. But I just couldn't bring myself to abandon that tiny, wrinkled little thing. So, I carried the baby to the gate of the Law estate. Those probing, contemptuous, disdainful stares, I ignored them all. I want to see Lazaro, I said. I gave birth to his child. Things didn't go the way Teresa had imagined. I wasn't thrown out. Instead, they let me in. A DNA test was arranged immediately. When Lazaro Law came back, the old madam of the Law family said, her tone unreadable, "Our Law family finally has an heir." The man was tall and imposing, his figure sharp and cold. He only gave me a single indifferent glance. I lowered my gaze guiltily. It was only based on the details Teresa told me that I dared to take such a desperate step. She had said that the night she and Lazaro were together, the lights were off. So Lazaro never knew exactly what the woman looked like that night. But standing in front of such a powerful man, I couldn't help but feel my confidence crumble. I had no idea what would happen. Fortunately, Lazaro Law said nothing, but neither did he look at the child. The old madam coughed lightly. This girl went through 10 months of pregnancy. That wasn't easy. Lazaro cut her off. I'll marry her. Everyone froze. I was stunned as well. I had come only to return the child to the Law family. I hadn't even thought about what would happen to me. The air was frozen for a long while. Lazaro's gaze fell on me casually. I'll atone for my own sin. The old madam frowned, then sighed, rubbing her temples. Do as you wish. If that's your decision, then prepare for the wedding. In that moment, I gripped my skirt tightly. I didn't understand why Lazaro was doing this. He wasn't short of women who wanted to marry him. There were plenty of ladies in City A who would gladly become the young Master Law's stepmother. Yet he was willing to marry a woman who had secretly given birth to his child behind his back. Maybe, he wanted to give the child a complete family. I didn't know. But I was just an ordinary woman, poor and unlucky. A chance to marry into a wealthy family was right before me. I didn't want to let it go. Besides, that child was my sister's. We shared blood, after all. So I lifted my eyes, gave Lazaro a smile, and said, I'll be a good wife, and a good mother. And that's how it began. Some lies, once told, last for 7 years. Chapter 2. What's with the absent-mindedness? Lazaro wrapped his arms around my waist, calmly glancing at me from the side. I snapped back to reality and leaned into his embrace, speaking softly, Anthony's lost weight these past few days. If he keeps going, there won't be any flesh on his body. Lazaro frowned, his tone cool, you've been putting too much energy into him. As he spoke, he grabbed my chin and kissed me, refusing to allow any resistance. He only let go when I was nearly out of breath. He held my waist and placed me onto his lap. Lazaro, looking down from above, said, You have something on your mind. He was always so sharp and perceptive, it scared me. But I had already prepared my response. I continued, bringing up the child again, speaking with concern. Anthony's teacher told me that he doesn't interact much with the other kids at school. Do you think we should take him to a psychologist? I'm afraid Vicky. Lazaro interrupted me, his eyes dark, you need to have your own things to focus on. I paused, then sighed. Fine. I sat on Lazaro's lap, watching his long fingers tap the keyboard, efficiently handling his work. He didn't ask any further questions, and I narrowly avoided that conversation. But then, Teresa came back. No matter how much I tried to avoid it, this was something I couldn't escape. Once she throws the paternity test report between her and Anthony at the Law family, all the lies will come crumbling down. My deception will be exposed. It had been several days already, and I still hadn't contacted Teresa. I unconsciously clenched my fingers, inhaling deeply, then sighed again. Inhaling, then sighing. Lazaro, unable to bear it any longer, closed his laptop, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Stop worrying about Anthony for now. You should worry about yourself. When my nightgown was lifted, my mind snapped back to attention. I hurriedly pushed him away. Wait. I just remembered I have something to do. Right, I need to make dessert for Anthony. He caught both my wrists with one hand and pinned them above my head. Then he made me bite the lifted nightgown. He looked down at me, smirking. You talk too much, babe. I glared at him, muffling my words. Lazaro supported my waist, his voice deep, just like that. Cute. Chapter 3. I don't know how much time passed. I lay on the sofa, utterly drained and hopeless. Lazaro had already dressed neatly and coolly, planting a kiss on my forehead. I'm heading to the office. Don't wait for me for dinner. I nodded, exhausted. The relationship between Lazaro and I was strange, more intimate and affectionate than that of a respectful couple, but certainly not overflowing with passion. He rarely ate at home and seldom showed any interest in Anthony. It was only when he was with me that there was any warmth. But even that was minimal. Apart from that one incident, there was nothing much to talk about between us. I was drowsily dozing off on the sofa in the master bedroom. Until I heard the sound of a door opening downstairs. Anthony must be home from school. I shuffled down in my slippers. Anthony, why are you late today? My voice trailed off abruptly. Teresa was standing at the door, holding Anthony's hand. My lips moved, but it took me a while before I could speak. Sister. Anthony smiled and said, Mom, after school, Auntie took me to the amusement park to play. I struggled to force a smile, walking slowly over to him. I squatted down and pinched his cheek. Did Grandpa the butler and Uncle the driver go with you? He nodded. I smiled. All right, but from now on, we need to make sure Grandpa the butler contacts Mommy first, okay? He nodded again. Teresa suddenly spoke up, I didn't expect you to actually look like a mother. As she spoke, I lifted my head. Teresa's appearance hadn't changed much from 7 years ago. She was wearing a coat, carrying a designer bag. She no longer had the ragged look from when she left City A all those years ago. I didn't respond. She gently pulled Anthony into her arms and said to me, You've taken my place for so long. It's time to return it. Her tone wasn't harsh, and Anthony didn't sense anything wrong. He just blinked in confusion. What place? I froze for a moment, instinctively clenching my fist. Teresa lowered her voice to a whisper, one only she and I could hear. Being sisters, you've been pretending to be me and occupying my position for so long. I won't hold it against you. But if you want to make this a fight, you won't stand a chance. She finished and pressed Anthony's shoulder, smiling slightly at me. Anthony. I croaked. Did you have fun today? Anthony's personality was more like Lazaro's, he wasn't very lively. He rarely smiled, but now he gave a little smile and looked at Teresa. Yes, I had fun. Then, I hesitated before speaking, for the parent-teacher meeting the day after tomorrow, if both your aunt and I can go, who would you prefer? He froze for a moment, then hesitated, reaching out to hold Teresa's hand. I remained silent for a long time. Then I patted his back. Go back to your room and do your homework, all right? After Anthony left, Teresa and I locked eyes for a long time. I smiled bitterly. I can leave. Give me some money. Once I'm settled abroad, you can reveal the truth. Otherwise, with Lazaro's vengeful personality, if he finds out I've been deceiving him for 7 years, he'll probably kill me. Teresa frowned. How much do you want? I've been raising your child for so long. I'll take a step back. 10 million. She sneered. I was just complimenting you. Trading the child for money, and you don't feel guilty? I looked at her. We were at a standstill for several minutes. Then she spoke. Fine, but I only have 2 million on hand right now. That should be enough for you to live for a while. Once everything is settled, I'll give you the remaining amount. I whispered, okay. Chapter 4. Evening. Lazaro sent me a message, I won't be coming back tonight. Okay, hubby. I replied swiftly. He responded with a question mark. He was wearing suspenders and holding a book. His small face, still not fully developed, was expressionless. What is it? Mom or aunt? The air was still. I smiled, breaking the frozen moment. Aunt. Anthony stared at me for a few seconds, then quickly turned and ran upstairs. I didn't chase after him. Lazaro asked, with interest, before, when you and he had conflicts, you always chased after him to comfort him. What, not comforting him anymore? I shook my head. That's something Teresa should do. Teresa won't comfort him. Lazaro replied lazily. I paused, instinctively surprised by the understanding in his tone. Then I realized that's no longer my responsibility. Lazaro didn't respond. I wasn't sure when, but the lights in the living room dimmed. The butler and other servants had long left. Lazaro looked at me with an expression so indifferent it made me uneasy. Then, he slowly approached me. 7 years of lies, and you think you can just run away, Miss Vicky? It's time we settled the score. Before I could react, I was thrown onto the bed. You. Lazaro took off his tie and used it to bind my hands, his smile cold. No complaints, understand? His long fingers slowly undid the top button of my shirt. A single tear fell onto his hand. Lazaro froze for a moment, lifting his gaze. Why are you crying? He asked. I didn't answer, only tears continued to fall uncontrollably. He wiped the tears away roughly with his thumb, his voice tinged with frustration. Speak. My mind was a whirlwind, all sorts of emotions flooding my heart. In the end, I could only cover my eyes with my hand and sob softly. Do you really hate me this much? After a long pause, Lazaro spoke, his voice devoid of any emotion. To keep the child in the Law family, all these years, you've truly been humiliated. Chapter 9. Lazaro left. I watched his back and slowly curled up under the covers. Perhaps, if I had just left Anthony at the Law estate gate back then, none of this would have happened. I had always been a weak person, bullied at school and too afraid to fight back, having my phone stolen on the street, but not daring to chase after the thief. It was Teresa, time and again, scolding me while also helping me. She would take a brick and smash the heads of the punks, or run after the thief and get my phone back. And the bravest thing I've ever done was pretending to be her and marrying into the Law family. Vicky. I heard a clear voice and looked up in confusion. Anthony stood in the shadow of the doorway, quietly watching me. He didn't know what to call me, so he just said my name. "Why are you crying?" he asked. "Because." I met his gaze and felt like I had done so many wrong things. Anthony slowly walked toward me, his small hand wiping away my tears. Then, he lifted the covers and crawled in beside me. We didn't speak, neither of us. I was too embarrassed to continue crying in front of him. "What's wrong? Are you afraid to sleep alone?" He pressed his lips together and nodded. I grabbed my phone to call Teresa. Anthony stopped my hand. "Huh?" He didn't explain, just stubbornly refusing to let me make the call. I sighed and put the phone down. "Did you two fight?" Teresa can be pretty headstrong. She might not want to take the first step to make up. Anthony's hand was cold, so I held it, trying to warm it up. The atmosphere was quiet. "Go to sleep," I said. "Don't you have school tomorrow?" He buried himself deeper in the blankets. I lifted the covers and tucked them around his shoulders. "You can't breathe properly if you're all covered like that." He closed his eyes. I stared at his fuzzy black hair for a long while, my eyelids growing heavier. Once the tightly wound nerves finally relaxed, I fell asleep quickly. Lazaro opened the door and saw the scene before him. His expression was hidden in the shadows, his gaze fixed. The bed, which was 2 meters wide, was occupied by both the big and the small, with no space left for him. He let out a cold laugh. The person who had cried so pitifully earlier was now sleeping so deeply. Lazaro stood at the door for a long while, before turning and walking toward the guest room. Chapter 10. The next day. When I woke up and went downstairs, Anthony had already gone to school. Lazaro was sitting on the sofa, his long legs crossed. He had his fingers pressed against his temples, and only raised his eyelids when he heard movement. Beside him lay a beautiful dress, both in style and material. He tilted his chin up. "Put it on. Come with me back home." "Me? Come with you?" I quickly shook my head, resisting. "What about Teresa?" Lazaro tossed the dress into my arms, his tone flat as he repeated, "You'll come with me." I hesitated but took the dress. The car journey was smooth, and we arrived at the law estate. The old madam was seated at the head of the table, waiting for us. She took a sip of tea. Lazaro's father had passed away unexpectedly 8 years ago, and Lazaro had taken over the company then. After the chairman died, the stock market crashed. When Lazaro took over, the company was in chaos. But in just half a year, he managed to get everything back on track. The business world in a city had a saying, "A tiger father never has a dog son." Lazaro was an efficient, ruthless business genius. The old madam couldn't control Lazaro, and she never made things difficult for his wife either. She didn't ask about the recent events, but during dinner, she said, "Vicky, why hasn't your belly shown any signs?" I froze. The reason there was no sign before was that I felt I already had Anthony. There was no need to have another child. Lazaro and I had been careful about it. As for the future, there would be no signs. I carefully worded my reply, "But don't we already have Anthony?" The old madam's gaze shifted from me to Lazaro. Lazaro didn't speak. His fingers absent-mindedly tapped on the table. The old madam said casually, "Have another one. It'll be good for Anthony to have a companion." I didn't respond. Lazaro calmly said, "We'll talk about it later." The old madam continued to play with her prayer beads but didn't speak further. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something off about her expression, as if there was something she wanted to say but hadn't. After dinner, Lazaro received a call and had to return to the office. He wanted to take me with him. The old madam smiled thinly. "Let Vicky walk with me after dinner. I'm getting old, and my digestion isn't great." Lazaro declined for me. "There are plenty of people in the house. Anyone can walk with you." The old madam's smile faded. "What do you mean by that? Do you think I'll bully her?" The atmosphere became tense. I quickly spoke up, "Lazaro, you go ahead and work. I'll walk with Mom. It's been a while since I spent time with her." Lazaro looked at me for a few seconds, then turned and left. I averted my gaze and smiled as I sat next to the old madam. "Let me help you up." She pressed her hand on mine and sighed. Then she took off the greenish-blue bracelet from her wrist and placed it on my hand. I was shocked. No, no, Mom, I can't accept this. She shook her head. This color is too delicate, but it suits you. I felt a strange feeling in my heart. This bracelet had never reached me in 7 years, so why did Teresa come back, and now the old madam was giving it to me? The old madam suddenly said, "Vicky, you and Lazaro are not getting any younger. Have another one. A boy or a girl, it would make the family more lively." I forced a smile. Mom, this can't be forced. Besides, Anthony is just starting school. If we had another one, I'm afraid it would make him feel uneasy. Tell me the truth. She furrowed her brows. Is it that you don't want another child, or is it Lazaro who doesn't want one? I pressed my lips together. I just didn't think too much about it. One child is enough. Don't you want to give him another sibling? She suddenly asked. I was stunned. Actually, in the beginning, when we first got married, I thought about it. But I felt it wouldn't be fair to Anthony. If I'm being honest with myself, if a child were born from Lazaro and me, could I really treat both children equally without any selfishness? Could I still focus all my attention and love on Anthony? I couldn't take that gamble, so I gave up. The old madam didn't say anything more. She just patted my hand. Chapter 11. When I returned to the villa, I was surprised to find Teresa sitting at the table in the living room on the first floor. She was waiting for me. Teresa met my gaze, her red lips parting slightly. I'm leaving. What do you mean? I was confused. She put on her sunglasses. It's not as good here as I imagined. Besides, all my connections and resources are abroad. I took a moment to digest her words. What about Anthony? The law family won't agree to you taking him abroad. Teresa frowned. Who said I'm taking him? You're not taking him with you? I suddenly grabbed Teresa's sunglasses and pulled them off, staring into her beautiful almond-shaped eyes, my voice rising uncontrollably. You came all the way back to tell him that his biological mother is someone else, and then you're going to tell him that you're leaving again, that you don't want him anymore? She slowly blinked, then nodded. Yes. I raised my hand and slapped her. She turned her head away. My voice trembled. It was me who carried him and took him to the law family. It was me who carefully raised him for 7 years. You said I took your place, fine, I'll give it back to you. And now you're leaving again, Teresa, you abandoned him twice. What about me? I muttered to myself in the end. What about me? Teresa seemed to sense the underlying meaning in my words, and there was a rare moment of hesitation in her expression. My eyes reddened. When you wanted to go abroad, I couldn't stop you. I only wanted to give your child the best life. You returned, thinking my position would give you a better life. I can give you that. In your eyes, I may be the villain, but I have no regrets. All these years. I choked, closing my eyes. I've really missed you. Her fingertips trembled. Long silence. Anthony is not Lazaro's child. Something shattered in the air. Teresa leaned back in her chair, her eyes dull. They're not biological father and son. I heard my voice tremble. What did you say? Of course, he's my child. Teresa fumbled in her pocket for a cigarette, but before she could light it, I said, go to the balcony. She nodded. Lazaro has a twin brother. Did you know? Teresa asked. I thought for a moment. I've never heard him mention it. They died in a car accident together with their father, Teresa said, her lips curving in a sad smile. The day before he died, he told the family he was going to find me and marry me. He even saw my face through the surveillance and got my photo, showing off to everyone how beautiful I was. I was struggling to calm my emotions, still confused. So why did you think it was Lazaro? She exhaled a puff of smoke, staring into the distance. I only found out recently. The drugged wine was meant for Lazaro, but his brother drank it. Teresa leaned on the balcony, her face barely visible in the white smoke. She smiled faintly. Back then, if I just slept with Lazaro and got his photo, I would have gotten 200,000. She made a motion with her hand, showing the figure. 200,000, so much. But when I woke up, everyone was gone. The only thing left for me was a child. I wanted to say something. But I realized I didn't know what to say. After a long while, I whispered, "You want me to leave, but now you're leaving. What about Anthony?" Also, my throat was dry, "You and Lazaro, you two are already married." The night breeze blew as she pulled her coat tighter. "He never signed the divorce agreement." I was stunned. "What?" Teresa turned to face me. "The wedding was fake. As for the truth, you can ask him." She patted my shoulder, preparing to leave. "Teresa," I called out, my voice suddenly firm. "I'm not a saint. Just because you tell me to leave doesn't mean I will. If you want me to stay, I'll stay." I lowered my eyes. "All these years, I've been lost. But when you came back, I realized that being Mrs. Law isn't as important to me as I thought. I can accept losing it. I can accept losing Lazaro and Anthony. Of course, I can accept losing you." "No, wait, 7 years ago, I already lost you." I spoke softly. "You want to leave, go ahead. I won't stay." Teresa turned her head away. I couldn't see her expression, but I heard her voice trembling. "Vicky, after our parents died, we depended on each other for years. I hated you. I always thought if it weren't for you, I'd live more easily. Do you know why I had to make that 200,000? Because you said you didn't want to go to college and had no tuition fees." Her voice became hoarse. "But if I had that 200,000. But I never got that money. I got nothing. You didn't even go to college. I really." She laughed bitterly, her face full of self-deprecation. "I really thought Lazaro was the father of the child. I wanted to know if you would be willing to step aside for me. I was wrong. You were willing, and the truth slapped me in the face. I've been living like a joke from the beginning. Lazaro has always been yours." She pulled a recorder from her pocket and placed it in my hand. "So is Anthony." She turned and walked away, her coat billowing in the wind. Her lips moved slightly, and the words she uttered were scattered by the wind. "Sorry." Chapter 12. I sat on the bed, listening to the recording with surprising calmness. The recording was a conversation between Teresa and Anthony. Teresa said, "Why did I have to attend the parent-teacher meeting for you? Does she usually scold you?" Anthony, "No, it's just that at every parent-teacher meeting, the teacher tells her that I'm too introverted, and she always worries about me. I just don't want her to worry anymore." Teresa was silent. Teresa said, "The picture you drew of Vicky is really good. Why don't you draw one of me too?" Anthony refused. "No. Teresa, but she knows you only draw her and not me. She'll be sad." There was silence in the recording, followed by the soft sound of a pen scratching on paper. "Teresa, you don't really seem to like smiling." Anthony, "It's okay. Teresa, let me tell you about Vicky. She was always timid when she was little. Even when she was bullied, she wouldn't speak up." Anthony, "She was always bullied?" Teresa, She looked harmless, easy to bully. A group of punks trapped her in an alley, and she didn't dare to fight back. All she could do was cry." Anthony's voice finally showed some emotion. "What happened after that?" Teresa laughed a little. "Don't worry. I cracked all their heads open with a brick." There was another pause. "Teresa, stop looking like that. Smile. I'll tell you some other things about her, some happier ones." Anthony, "Okay. Teresa, let's start when she was 10. That was when our parents had just passed away, and I was learning to make pancakes from the neighbor. She followed me around, calling me sister, but she could barely even carry a textbook without stumbling." I quietly listened to the entire recording. Then I went downstairs. The butler nodded. "Madam, Miss Teresa has left." I turned around and saw Anthony sitting on the sofa, his head lowered. I asked, "Did you draw me something?" He hesitated, then looked up. He had drawn. I sat next to him and stroked his head, wanting to say something. In the end, everything fell silent. After a moment, I said, "Let me see it." Anthony was silent. "She took it with her." I froze. Confused, I asked, "But you drew me and her?" Anthony nodded. "She took the drawing of you that I made." I gazed out the window. The wind today seemed especially strong, and autumn was here again. The chilly autumn night. I wondered if Teresa would catch a cold on her way to the airport. "Will you leave?" Anthony asked in a small voice. He had heard my conversation with Teresa. My gaze returned to him, and I shook my head uncertainly. "I don't know. Maybe." I thought Anthony would be sad, would cry, or beg me not to leave. But instead, he just held my hand. "Where are you going? Can I come find you during the holidays?" I pinched his cheek. "But I'm not your real mom." He let me pinch him without saying a word. I sighed and pulled him into my arms. "But I love you, Mom," he said, his voice small, like a mosquito's hum, awkwardly clutching my shirt. Chapter 13. After Anthony fell asleep, I sat in the living room, waiting for Lazaro. By the time he returned, it was already late into the night. When Lazaro saw me, he paused for a brief moment, almost imperceptibly. "Why aren't you asleep?" I shrugged. "Waiting for you." "Waiting for me? For what?" He met my gaze, the corner of his lips curving up. "Teresa said you didn't sign the divorce agreement. I'm here to remind you to sign it," I said with a slight smile. After all, the little boy I've been raising outside is eager for me to give him a title. The smile on Lazaro's lips faltered, and his eyes darkened in an instant. "What did you say? Do you need me to repeat it?" I said. He strode over, grabbing my chin. "We're not divorced yet." "How dare you?" I frowned. "But you've already had a wedding with my sister. What position do you have to condemn me?" "I have nothing to do with her," Lazaro growled. As his gaze met mine, he suddenly stopped. "What about the photos of you two together, the wedding trending on social media?" I spoke coldly. "Lazaro, fake." I stared at him. He gritted his teeth. "The photos of us walking together were taken by a reporter she hired. I didn't know about it." That's when I told her the truth. The wedding photos were something Teresa asked me to take, and after that, she had a professional do an AI face swap, changing my face to my brother's. I slightly furrowed my brows. "What about the wedding trending?" Lazaro sneered. "The trending images were made by someone I hired to contact your neighbor, have that little girl show it to you." "I see, no wonder the old madam hadn't asked about it. No one else knew." I chuckled coldly. "Did you pay her?" Lazaro's tone was indifferent. "I told her that my wife was angry with me and that I wanted her to come back and find me, that was all." He paused. "Of course, I gave her some money." I slapped him in disbelief. "You're insane. I made you angry. Didn't you?" He gritted his teeth. "I didn't even blame you for lying to me, and you ran off." I laughed bitterly. "I was afraid that when I carried Anthony to the law estate, all of you would know I was lying. Everyone knows the child isn't mine, it's my sister's. Everyone knows the child isn't Lazaro's, it's his dead brother's. The whole story, from start to finish, could easily be uncovered." Lazaro didn't speak. I wiped my face. "Then why did you marry me?" He parted his lips. "At that time, I was being forced into marriage, and you just happened to appear." Lazaro reclined on the sofa. "Anyway, I had to raise the child. Isn't it better to find someone with a blood connection to him?" He glanced at me, a hint of indifference in his eyes. "Or do you want to hear me say that I fell in love with you at first sight?" I waved my hand. "I'm not that narcissistic." "What about the divorce agreement? You're going to sign it?" Lazaro's expression darkened. "I have nothing to do with your sister." "Then what?" I crossed my arms. "I've come to realize there's no need to continue living with a husband who never opens his mouth. You made me live in fear for so long. I lied to you for 7 years, but hasn't Lazaro also lied to me for 7 years?" He stood still, listening to my words. I wasn't sure how much time passed, but he grabbed my wrist, his voice struggling as he slowly said, "Can we not divorce?" Maybe I really did fall in love with you at first sight." I raised an eyebrow, looking at him in surprise. I shook my head. "No, it's not possible." Chapter 14. I started learning about finance, investments, and setting up a studio. It was incredibly time-consuming and expensive. Just when I was thinking about whether I should ask Lazaro, this former suitor, to contribute even a small amount, the transfer of $2 million came through. It was from Teresa. She sent me a message, the 10 million I promised you, every penny will be given. But it will take time, don't rush me. I sniffed and then told Lazaro, I don't need you anymore. I really did get busy. Anthony would often show up at my door, carrying his school bag. He was such an awkward child, taking after Lazaro. For example, if I didn't have time to look after him, he would hesitate and then say, Mom, can you come? And I looked at him. He stopped talking. I continued to focus on my work. He walked over, tugged at my sleeve, and asked, Can you come spend some time with me? I made you a little cake. You got your baking skills from me. Lazaro also started coming to find me. As soon as he walked in, his tone was off. Does your studio hire men? Yeah, I replied casually. Looks like a little pretty boy. He sneered. Oh. He smirked. Don't you have anything to say? Nope. We both stayed silent for a while. Lazaro finally said, I'm jealous. I nodded. He raised an eyebrow, staring at me intensely. All right. I reassured him, I'll watch a movie with you tonight. Lazaro said, Fine, I'll reluctantly accept that. Anthony propped his chin up. I want to go too. Lazaro said, You can't go. Anthony said, I'm going. Lazaro glared at him, No, you're not. I sighed helplessly, pressing my forehead. Why does life feel so unsettled every day? All right. I shrugged. It didn't feel too bad, actually.